the way I said it was totally wrong. At all times, there's like a giant ocean of just awfulness that's just right there. Sometimes I just want to dive into it and just be like in it. And then she said, sometimes I just look at it and sometimes I try to get away from it, but it's always there. Now, grief is not something that's linear in general, but specifically for survivors of suicide loss, there are very complex feelings that arise after a loved one takes their own life. And I saw this post a few days prior to this podcast. I saw this post by To Write Love on Her Arms that spoke about survivors of suicide loss and the feelings that come with their grief. So this is what it said. It said surviving a suicide loss is a unique form of grief. Guilt, shame, and what ifs can often take center stage. And then this is what the post said in the caption. Guilt as a suicide loss survivor can look like constantly wondering what you could have said or done to make things different, keeping details from others so that they don't judge you or your loved one, writing messages that can be sent and wishing for more time, ruminating and examining every moment spent with your loved one before they pass. Whether guilt or any other messy emotion, please know that you are not alone in feeling it. Losing someone to suicide is one of the hardest things to navigate, and you deserve support every step of the way. Which is 100% true. There's a lot of what ifs or what could I have done differently that could have kept them here. And it's a very complicated situation. And, I did the research on survivors of suicide loss, and this is what it said. It said survivors of suicide loss experience a unique and complex grieving process that is often intense, long term, and complicated by feelings of shock, guilt, shame, and blame. It is important to remember that there is no single right way to grieve and that healing is possible over time with self compassion and support. Common challenges for survivors, unlike other causes of death, and the loss of a loved one to suicide presents distinct hurdles that can complicate the grieving process. The need to understand. Many survivors are plagued with what if questions and an intense need to understand the unknowable reasons for the suicide. This often leads to ruminating over past events for clues that were missed. Intense guilt and responsibility. It is common for survivors to feel a profound sense of guilt and blame, questioning if they could have prevented the death. This often stems from misconception that suicide can be prevented, causing survivors to mistakenly shoulder the responsibility. And feelings of abandonment and rejection. Survivors may feel rejected or abandoned by their loved one for choosing to end their life. For spouses and children, this can be especially intense, as they may feel the deepest bond was not enough to prevent the death. And stigma and isolation. The stigma surrounding suicide can lead to a lack of understanding from others, causing friends, family to withdraw. This social isolation can exacerbate feelings of shame and embarrassment, further complicating the grieving process. And increased mental health risks. Survivors of suicide loss are at an increased risk for developing major depression, post traumatic stress disorder, substance misuse, and suicidal thoughts themselves. Traumatic distress. For survivors who discover the body or witness the suicide, the experience can be deeply traumatic for these individuals. These individuals are at a higher risk for PTSD and may be haunted by intrusive memories and flashbacks. And navigating the healing process. While the raw intensity of grief will fade, healing happens at its own pace. It doesn't follow a predictable timeline. Like I said, healing is linear, 100%. I'm sorry, healing isn't linear. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Healing is not linear. And some healthy coping strategies are included in this research. Find support from others. Support groups for suicide loss survivors offer a safe, non judgmental space to share your story with people who have had similar experiences. This can help survivors feel less isolated. The Alliance of Hope and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention are two excellent resources. Lean on trusted friends and family. Seek out people who are willing to listen and offer support without judgment. Others the most helpful thing others can do is simply be present and listen. Seek professional help. If you experience unrelenting anguish, depression, or suicidal thoughts, Seeking professional help is critical. Therapists specializing in grief, particularly suicide loss, can help you navigate complex emotions and develop healthy coping mechanisms. Be patient with yourself. Healing is not a linear process, and setbacks are a normal part of the journey. It is crucial to be patient with yourself and avoid making major life decisions while grieving intensely. And express your emotions. Find healthy ways to express your feelings, such as journaling, talking with someone, and engaging in guided meditation. And honor your loved one. Find meaningful ways to remember and honor your loved one. This might include creating a memorial, sharing positive stories, or participating in a community walk for suicide prevention. And important resources. Here are some important resources for suicide prevention, as well as if you're struggling after a suicide loss. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Call or text 988 at any time in the U.S. to connect with a trained counselor for immediate support. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention offers healing resources and a database of support for groups for suicide loss survivors. Alliance of Hope for Suicide Loss Survivors provides a 24/7 online forum and resources for survivors. Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors is called TAPS. It offers a support for those grieving the loss of a military loved one to suicide, and helpguide.org. It provides resources and tips for navigating suicide loss and complicated grief. Now, based on research, one suicide can profoundly affect up to 135 people, far more than the commonly cited estimate of 6. These individuals, friends, family, and acquaintances, are known as survivors of suicide loss. This is what the research said. I'm reading when I looked up statistics on survivors of suicide loss. This complex and traumatic form of bereavement is associated with a higher risk of mental and physical health issues compared to other types of loss. Demographics and the scale of the impact. Total number affected, with approximately 49,500 suicides in the U.S. in 2022. Millions of people have become survivors of suicide loss. Widespread exposure. About 1 in 4 people know someone who has died by suicide. And the mental health risk for survivors of suicide loss face a higher risk for mental health problems compared to other bereaved individuals and the general population. Depression. Studies show that suicide loss survivors report higher levels of depression, which can persist for many years following the loss. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Many family members who find their loved ones are at high risk for PTSD. And complicated grief. Survivors are more likely to develop complicated grief, a persistent and intense form of grief that significantly impairs daily functioning, and feelings of guilt, shame, and stigma. Intense and painful emotions like shame and guilt are a hallmark of suicide bereavement. Survivors may feel responsible for death and face stigma from others, which can lead to social isolation. And the increased risk among survivors. Survivors are at a significantly elevated risk for suicidal ideation and attempts themselves. This risk is amplified by factors such as chronic life events, severe depression, and high levels of hopelessness. Elevated suicide risk. A large study in South Korea found that the risk of death by suicide was 3 times higher in suicide survivors than in those who lost loved ones to non-suicide deaths. Immediate aftermath. The initial months after loss are especially critical. One study found that suicide loss survivors were nearly 10 times more likely to consider suicide themselves in the months following the death, and a higher risk by relationship. Research has shown that a wife's risk of suicide after her husband's suicide is significantly elevated compared to other relationships. This is what the research said. I'm just reading back what the research said. This is not based on anything I think or feel. The psychological stress from suicide bereavement can also negatively impact a survivor's physical health. Somatic symptoms. Survivors can often report physical symptoms such as headaches, chest pain, and gastrointestinal issues. Increased disease risk. Studies have shown an increased risk of medical problems include pain, cardiovascular issues, and cancer, and access to support. Despite the severe impact, a significant portion of survivors may not receive adequate support. A lack of support. In one UK study, 25% of suicide bereaved and young adults receive no formal or informal support. And stigma as a barrier. Shame and stigma often prevent survivors from seeking or receiving the help that they need. And also on the topic, many celebrities, I always bring up in like certain topics that I sometimes lack the, you know, relation to. I like to bring up celebrities that are well known that are suicide loss survivors, or like for this topic, suicide loss survivors or celebrities who can relate to the topic at hand. Because I know for me, when somebody is going through something in life and somebody they profoundly look up to has been through the same thing, they can often find solace in knowing that they're not alone in their journey or their struggle. So I always like to bring up like celebrities. So like if somebody's going through something, they can be like, "Oh, well, I was just for example, I was just diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I heard Selena Gomez has bipolar disorder. Let me do research on her. Let me watch her documentary. Let me or like a suicide loss survivor, oh, I heard this happen to this person, what they're going through, what they've said about these things, or what they've been through, I can relate to. I feel not alone now. So that's why I like to bring up like different celebrities and what they've been through so that somebody out there who's listening can be like, oh my God, I absolutely love, like, for example, Joan Rivers, she lost her husband to suicide. So, say somebody who loves Joan Rivers, they can do research on that or do research on, things like that, or this is exactly why it helps eradicate the stigma when somebody else out there has been through a similar struggle. So let's get back to the topic. Sorry, I'm just like going off on a tangent. So many celebrities have spoken publicly about being survivors of suicide loss, honoring loved ones, and raising awareness for mental health. Um, Children: Lisa Marie Presley, singer and daughter of Elvis Presley, lost her son Benjamin Kehoe to suicide in 2020. Regina King, actress, lost her son Ian Alexander Jr. to suicide in 2022. Marie Osmond, singer and actress, lost her son Michael Blosiel. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. Michael Blosiel to suicide in 2010. Judy Collins, singer and songwriter, lost her son Clark Taylor to suicide in 1992. And NFL coach Tony Dungy, and his wife Lauren lost their son James Dungy to suicide in 2005. Now, this is for partners and spouses. Courtney Love, singer of the band Hole, lost her husband Kurt Cobain to suicide in 1994. They also had a daughter, Frances Bean Cobain, who has a beautiful child with Tony Hawk's son. So Kurt Cobain is currently a grandfather. God rest his soul. He's my favorite musician. Nirvana is one of my favorite bands of all time. Patton Oswalt, actor and comedian, lost his first wife, writer Michelle McNamara, to an accidental overdose involving prescription drugs and an undiagnosed heart condition in 2016. Though not a suicide, he has been an advocate for grief and mental health. And Joan Rivers, who I previously spoke about, I love Joan Rivers. She such an icon. God rest her soul. Comedian, lost her husband Edgar Rosenberg to suicide in 1987. And these are for people who've lost parents. Mariel Hemingway, she's an actress, lost both her grandfather Ernest Hemingway and her sister Margot Hemingway to suicide. Jane Fonda lost her mother Frances Ford Seymour to suicide when Jane was 12 years old. Freddie Prinze Jr., oh my God, I used to have the biggest crush on him. I want to go see I Know What You Did Last Summer this soon. Anyways, let's go back to the topic. Freddie Prinze Jr., actor, was a baby when his father, comedian Freddie Prinze, died by suicide. Richard Belzer, comedian and actor, lost his father to suicide. Siblings and other family: Anderson Cooper, a journalist and CNN anchor. I love Anderson Cooper. Lost his brother Carter Cooper to suicide in 1988. David Spade, actor and comedian, lost his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law. What the way this is? It's sister-in-law. It's his sister-in-law. That's so weird. Let me correct this. David Spade lost his sister-in-law, fashion designer Kate Spade, God rest her soul, to suicide in 2018. Demi Lovato, singer and actress, has spoken about their history and with suicide attempts and losing loved ones to suicide. And Clay Aiken lost his sister to suicide. Excuse me. Now, let me give you some resources for some suicide loss survivors. Examples of available peer support, national. This is on the national level. AFSP Groups Alliance of Hope, Save AAS Handbook, virtual and in person. This is peer support. Samaritan Safe Place, Helpline Center, the Alliance Forums, Special Population TAPS is for military families, bereavement camps for children, Global Confidential Support, Befrienders Worldwide, / Samaritan Centers Worldwide, Self-Help and Literature, Grief Guides from AFSP, Helpline Center, AAS, plus Dougy Center resources. Professional support, clinician listings via AFSP, Dougy Center suggestions, AAS resources. Now, here are some widely respected organization and resources for suicide loss survivors. That was a very weird way they had that laid out, but I just had to read what it said. National International Support Organizations, the 988 Lifeline Lost Survivors Resources offers supports through text, call, or chat, guidance on finding support groups, writing as healing, creating safety plans, and more. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP, offers support groups in person and online, U.S. and international, healing conversations, peer-to-peer phone or video support, the International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day events each year, resource and healing guide also available in Spanish, plus materials for grief in children and teens, digital memory quilts and memory quilts panels for honoring loved ones, and a list of bereavement trained clinicians, and SAVE, Suicide Awareness Voices of Education. It provides compassionate assistance referrals, a grief support directory, survivor events, and loss team of volunteers. And it offers options for honoring your loved one through their named memorial program, and financial support resources. An Alliance of Hope for Suicide Loss Survivors, a nonprofit peer group organization offering online forums and supportive community, blog posts, guidance for new survivors and healing journeys, healing emails tailored specifically for parents and mothers, and a memorial wall where you can honor your person. Peer and community-based support, Samaritan's Grief Support Services. It offers peer-based virtual and in-person support groups, including specific groups for parents and the LGBTQIA+ community. In-person safe place meetings scheduled monthly at Upton, Massachusetts, and more events are listed online. The Helpline Centers for Grief Resources for Suicide Loss Survivors offers a downloadable Healing After Suicide Loss guide available in print and electronic form. It maintains a resource library with class offerings and survivor support options. And the American Association of Suicidology, AAS, offers downloadable handbook with coping with suicide grief by fellow survivor and in both English and Spanish. And the Dougy Center offers a comprehensive grief support library in materials for specific relationship, child, sibling, friend, and formats, activities, videos, podcasts, articles, and a specialized in cultural resources tragedy assistance program for survivors. It's called TAPS. It focuses on military families who have lost loved ones to suicide, uses a 3-phase suicide postvention model, stabilization, grief work, and post-traumatic growth, and hosts seminars and grief camps. Befrienders Worldwide, including Samaritans globally, offers confidential, non-judgmental emotional support in over 32 countries, and via phone, email, chat, SMS, or in person. And here's some additional support tools and insight. Grief counseling and postvention understanding. Reading helps process emotions like shock, guilt, confusion, and stigma, common in suicide bereavement. Support via therapy, peer groups, and mental health professionals can be crucial to avoid complicated grief and foster healing. And bereavement camps for children and families, organizations such as Comfort Zone Camp, it's in New Jersey, Camp Kita in Maine, and Living Foundation in Minnesota, and the Luna Network host camps that provide therapeutic and peer-based healing opportunities for youth affected by suicide loss. In your next step, you might consider select one or two resources to explore, such as a phone or text option, the 988 Lifeline or Befrienders, and start with a peer group that resonates with you. You can request a digital or print guide. Healing or lifeline or helpline centers healing after suicide loss may offer immediate grounded support. Consider attending an event or a forum like Alliance of Hope online forums or Save Memorial events to connect with others who understand. And if you're in crisis and feel unsafe, don't hesitate to reach out right now. The Lifeline 988 is available in the US, and for global help, you can use Befrienders Worldwide Networks. If it's an emergency, call 911. And the journey after losing someone to suicide can feel isolating and overwhelming, but healing doesn't have to be walked alone. Whether you find solace in shared stories or practical tools or connecting through grief groups, it's okay to do that at your own pace or ways that feel good for you. Now, my favorite thing is to give affirmations, and I know specifically for people who are survivors of suicide loss, I know it comes with a lot of complicated feelings. So here are some affirmations to help you go through this grief journey, things that you need to hear or things that you haven't heard or whatever. So these are some affirmations for healing after suicide loss. I did the best I could with the knowledge and tools I had at the time. My loved one's choice does not define my worth, my love, or the bond we shared. It's okay for me to grieve in my own way and at my own pace. My loved one's wife. Excuse me. I honor my loved one's life, not just their death. I'm allowed to feel joy again without guilt. It does not mean I have forgotten. Grief is love with nowhere to go, and I can carry that love forward. I release the need to blame myself. I am human and I loved deeply. My loved one's struggle was real, and my pain is real too. Both deserve compassion. I can hold both sadness and hope at the same time. My healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means learning to live with love in a new way. Even in loss, I am still connected to my loved one through love and memory. I am stronger than I realize, and it's okay to lean on others when I need to. I give myself permission to seek peace and moments of comfort. I am not alone. Others walk this path of grief and healing beside me. Hope is not betrayal. It is a quiet act of survival and supporting. And also, that's for affirmations for you. And I also want to give people some, excuse me. Oh my God, my throat is very dry tonight. I want to give people some information on how you can support a friend or a loved one who is going through who is a survivor of suicide loss. It's very hard to help people you love grieve, and you don't know the right thing to say. It's specifically for situations like this, but here is a way to help support a suicide loss survivor. Be present without pressure. Show up, listen, sit with them in their pain, let them set the pace. Sometimes they'll want to talk, other times they may just want quiet company. Silence can be comforting. You don't have to have the right words. Acknowledge their loss, use their loved one's name, say things like, I'm sorry for your loss, your loved one mattered, and their life is worth remembering, and I'm here for you in whatever way you need, and validate their feelings. Reassure them that grief after suicide is complicated and there's no wrong way to feel. Allow that by validating them, say they're angry at the person. I'm so angry at him. Why do you have to leave? Like, validate that. Say your feelings are very valid. Like, you are allowed to feel your feelings. And normalize emotions like anger, guilt. I was just saying this. Normalize emotions like anger, guilt, relief, confusion, and numbness. Because what people who are grieving don't want to hear is you making them feel bad for feeling the way that they feel. Be a safe space for somebody to be like, okay, I'm grieving right now. I'm going to go over to so and so's house and just, excuse me, kick back with a bottle of wine and talk about my feelings, how angry I am at so and so for doing what they did and leaving me in this mess that I'm in. You know what I mean? Like, or they'll have a day where they completely miss the person and they're completely shattered over the like. When it comes to suicide loss, there's so many different complicated feelings. One day you're angry, one day you're feeling guilty, one day you're sad, one day it's so many mixed emotions that come with it. Offer practical support. Daily tasks can feel overwhelming in grief, like bring meals, help with childcare, errands, or household tasks. Accompany them to support groups or appointments if they want. Stay connected over time. Grief doesn't end after the funeral or the first weeks. Remember anniversaries, birthdays, and holidays with a call or a message. 100%. And this goes for just anybody grieving in general. I have family friends of ours who lost their husband and father back in November. So I know like during certain days or certain times of year, I even though it was months ago, I still reach out and be like, oh, how was your first birthday without, your husband? I know it's probably so hard, but you're probably feeling it's probably a bittersweet feeling because you have this going on in your life since they've been gone. Like, always reach out and be considerate of the people you love. Keep in touch with them 100%. It probably means so much that you're reaching out and reminding them of their loved one. Keep checking in long term, even if they don't always respond. Don't take it personal. They'll have their days. Like, grief is not linear, so if they don't answer you, it's not because they don't care about you. It's just because they have their own stuff going on. And encourage but don't push professional and peer support. Suggest resources like therapy, suicide loss support groups, or peer connections, like if they're open. Let them decide when they're ready. Honor their loved one together. Share memories if they're open to it. Create or participate in rituals that honor their person. Lighting a candle, memory books, walks or runs in their name. And watch for red flags. Survivors of suicide loss are at a higher risk for depression and suicidal thoughts. If you notice warning signs, hopelessness, oh, excuse me, my throat's very dry. Hopelessness, withdrawal, talk of self harm, encourage them to reach out for professional help or call 988 in the US if immediate safety is at risk. And here are some key principles of this whole thing. Presence over perfection. You don't need to have the perfect words. Your caring presence matters the most. Compassion over judgment. Avoid speculation about why or placing blame. Consistency over intensity. Gentle, ongoing support is more helpful than big gestures that fade quickly. And conversations about suicide loss survivors can be delicate, but deeply meaningful if approached with compassion and care. Survivors often feel isolated, misunderstood, or stigmatized. So, this is how you can bring up the conversation. Like, this is how you can talk about what was going on in this person's life or how they're feeling. Their loved one's life. Invite memories. What's one of your favorite memories with them? Or use the loved one's name. It validates that their life mattered. And share your own memories with if you knew them. Even if it's something so banal, any little thing will help that. Grief and healing. Acknowledge the uniqueness of suicide grief. Grief after suicide can feel different, and it's okay to feel a mix of emotions. Talk about coping strategies that help, like journaling, rituals, support groups, therapy. Normalize that there is no timeline or right way to grieve. Don't rush them. I hate people who think there's a expiration date to somebody's grieving. I've dealt with people like that, and that's the most idiotic thing you can ever do, is try to rush somebody out of their grieving. Their feelings in the moment. Let them lead. How are you doing today? Instead of how are you doing, which can feel like you say it in a way like how are you doing? Like you look at them like, oh, let's just state the obvious. How are you doing? Validate emotions. Whatever you're feeling right now is okay. Accept that feelings may change minute to minute. And support systems. Ask, is there something I can do that will be helpful right now? Or explore if they want a connection to survivor support groups or resources without pressure, and honoring and remembering. Talk about anniversaries, birthdays, or traditions. Offer to participate in remembrance activities, lighting a candle, walks, creating a memory book, and discuss ways to keep their loved one's legacy alive. And things to keep in mind while you're talking to the person. Um, Listen more than you speak. Survivors need space to share. Avoid judgment or speculation. Skip the cliches. Phrases like, they're in a better place now. Everything happens for a reason. That often hurts more than it helps. And be patient. Survivors may repeat stories, cycle through emotions, or need silence. Like, the conversation does not have to be perfect, it just has to be compassionate. And here are and then that's for just supporting a suicide loss survivor in general. But this are some self care tips. If you're somebody who is grieving somebody due to suicide, allow your feelings without emotional care for self care. Allow your feelings without judgment. It's okay to feel anger, guilt, numbness, or even relief. Grief after suicide is complex. Write it out. Journaling, 100%. You can put notes. You don't even have to buy a journal. Write it in your notes in your phone. If you feel angry one day, you feel angry for the loss, write it out on your phone. Type it out. If you feel guilty, type it out. If you feel sad, type it out. If you miss the person, type it out. If you have a memory that comes to mind, type it out. Just write it out. Journaling letters to your loved one or simply venting your emotions can release the pressure. Give yourself permission to grieve in your own way. There's no timeline or a right process to grieving. Some physical care. Prioritize rest. Sleep may be disrupted. Gentle routines like herbal tea, quiet music, melatonin, or calming rituals can help. Eat simply and regularly. Even small nourishing meals matter when the appetite is low. Move your body. Walking, stretching, yoga can ease and release heavy emotions stored in your body. And social care. Lean on safe people. Reach out to friends, family, or peer groups who listen without judgment. Join a survivor support group. Connecting with others who have walked this path can reduce your isolation. Ask for practical help. Let trusted people cook, drive, or handle tasks when you're overwhelmed, and some spiritual and reflective care. Create rituals of remembrance. Light a candle, make a memory box, or visit a place that brings you comfort. Honor a loved one's life, not just their death. Celebrate the moments they brought joy. Practice mindfulness or prayer. It is meaningful to you. To ground yourself when emotions feel unimaginable. And gentle daily practices. Drink water the first thing in the morning. Step outside daily for a few breaths of fresh air. Speak affirmations for yourself. I am surviving this moment. Healing is allowed. I've already also given some affirmations in the middle of this episode if you want to go back and listen to them again. And limit exposure to overwhelming news, social media, or people who minimize your grief. Grief after suicide can increase risk of depression and suicidal thoughts. If at any point you feel unsafe, please call 988, the Suicide Crisis Lifeline, or your local crisis line. If you're outside of the US, you don't have to carry this alone. Professional help, therapists, and trained suicide bereavement can be very healing. And thank you guys for listening. I'll be back in a few days with a new episode. I'm not really sure what I want to talk about. This topic kind of just came to me when I saw the post like a week ago about suicide loss survivors, and then also it followed up with the episode of Aubrey Plaza on the podcast, and I was like, okay, I definitely want to talk about this. So as next episode, I'm not really sure, but I'll definitely be back. I want to do a few episodes this week. Last week I just had one. This is the second one of the week. A little late with it. I was a little busy this week. So if you or anyone you know is struggling, text HOME to 741-741, the crisis text line, for a free confidential conversation with a trained counselor at any time of day. Text or call 988 or use the chat function at 988lifeline.org. 988 continues to offer support to anyone who needs it, but no longer offers specialized LGBTQIA plus support. If you're looking for specialized LGBTQIA plus support, you can contact the Trevor Project directly, 24/7. or call 1-866-488-7386 or text START to 678-678. Text START to 678-678 or connect online at trvr.org/get-help for the same free and secure support as always. We can find more crisis resources at thejedfoundation.org/crisis and the new lifeline for the LGBTQIA+, given by Canada due to it being taken away. Here's the number. It is 1-877-330-6366. The number is 1-877-330-6366. Thank you guys for listening. See you next time. Remember, this too shall pass. Love you guys. Stay well. Bye-bye.